Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education, a podcast that focuses on what is happening in education today, connecting everyone to the movers and shakers that are breaking boundaries in the education arena.
Well, hello. Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education. Jamie and Jerri here, but not where we normally are. We are at South by Southwest EDU, and we could not be more excited because this is our first one.
It is, and it's been on both of our bucket lists.
It's been on our bucket list.
To South by Southwest. We've heard so many good things about it. And are you pinching yourself? We're with the leaders.
I don't know. Again, another Kathy Hurley connection.
Yes, we mention Kathy quite often.
And we're excited to be with you. Welcome to South by Southwest.
Thank you.
And we sit here on International Women's Day, so we're excited to be in conversation with both of you.
Oh, we did not know that. So will you please introduce yourselves to our audience so we can get a little bit of background?
Sure, of course. And I'll just say, again, great to see you all here. So I'm Ron Reed, and I'm the founder and exec producer of South by Southwest EDU. And I've had the good fortune of launching the event with Greg Rosenbaum, who I'll let introduce himself.
And I'm Greg Rosenbaum. I am the Senior Director for South by Southwest EDU, and I joined Ron 13 years ago to help launch this event. So it's been a journey, and it's been a lot of fun along the way.
Wow.
So did it start in 2011?
It did, as a matter of fact. Actually, in 2010, we trialed education programming at South by Southwest Interactive. We had a couple of sessions and were blown away at the community's response. At the end of the session, there was a long line of folks at the microphone wanting to talk to the speakers. And as we looked around the room, sort of like we should do more of this. And that essentially began, South by Southwest EDU. We launched the next year. We've been having more fun than the law labs ever since, trying to grow the community and support the audience that attend.
So I guess that was your challenge, growing the community, getting it out there. What have you seen has been that incline? How did that work? How did you get that community to grow?
Yeah, I'll take a pass at this. We started thinking about who should be at the table, who needs to be having these conversations. And when South by Southwest EDU started, there was a lot of great events for educators, for practitioners, for administrators, for business leaders in education, but they were a little siloed. So there wasn't necessarily a forum where they could all come together in one space. And so we started from early on trying to figure out how do we bring everyone into the fold. And if you're having a conversation about a wonderful ed tech product, you should probably also have an administrator and an educator on the panel, maybe even a student talking about what the impact of that is, what that looks like in a class. And we've been doing that now for 13 years. So we've brought in higher education, early learning, continuing education and workforce development, and just continue to proliferate how the community comes together at South by Southwest.
And Greg, I must say you're doing that very well, because last night we went to the Stand Together social hour and thought to myself, I've never been at a social hour where there's an angel investor. There are people that are startups.
Yeah.
There was a teacher that was launching a film, and just other educators there. And so typically we are inside of just educators, but a room of educators, a room of administrators. So I loved that because we actually connected with people.
Yeah, we did. We made some connections. Oh, so might want to invest in your company.
That's amazing.
It was very exciting. And even just in that little space, we just wandered. We were leaving a session, we were headed out. We thought, what's here? And then just all this bubbling, overflowing of people connecting, and even the sessions that we've been able to visit. In and out of either higher ed or early elementary, but everyone involved in each breaking down those silos. And I went into sessions that I didn't think would connect to me, but so many connections instead were made. So I think, again, breaking down those silos is so important. And it is all about communication. In anything that we're doing, if we are not properly communicating and expressing, then we're not progressing. And so I think this is a perfect example of that in South by Southwest.
My next question is, we had a conversation last night. What are the big trends?
Yeah.
So we have had our conversation about And what we're seeing is the trending topics. What are people really into right now? What are you seeing?
First of all, so much. It's a very rich program. And to your point, we've been really intentional about trying to support an entire community that enhances lifelong learning. So from early learning to K-12 and higher education, we're seeing a lot of growth with workforce and employee education initiatives. And I think there's a lot of learning to be shared amongst all those groups. I think in trends, because we serve such a large and diverse community, there are a number of trend points. I'll call out just a couple as invite Greg to share as well. One of the things that has been very, very popular this year, and we're super proud, has been a focus on early learning and early literacy. I'm excited that later this morning, Michelle Kang from NACE is doing a conversation about sustainability of early learning. Yesterday, we had a movie screening of Right to Read, which is just so powerful about how literacy is its fundamental basis for that. So as one example, supporting our early learning community, particularly post-pandemic, feels like a real priority for the community, and we're excited to have that. And the other stone I'll touch just briefly is artificial intelligence, emerging tech, innovation, and creativity are really kind of the hallmarks of our brand. And so what's going on today with ChatGPT, both its power and its perils sort of associated with classroom, just been fantastic conversations. So those are at least two that come to mind.
Sure.
Yeah, and I'll add a few things. I mean, one of the things that we think a lot about as we bring together such a broad-based community is what sits at the cross-section of education and culture. And so there's some topics at the event this year that I'm really proud of. Tomorrow's closing keynote will be about school safety and how we move forward a year later from Uvalde, and talking about some of these real and important topics that we're facing across the country. In addition to that, looking at education technology, but looking at through an efficacy standpoint and from a research standpoint. So we're seeing a lot about the science of learning, how that's being adapted into products, how those products are having impacts for learners, for educators, for communities. And so there's a lot of content that sort of sits at that intersection that's been trending this year. And we're excited and proud to have that on the program.
Positive difference in society and all over the world. I love that too. The kind of the one world look at all of this.
Well, that's one of the kind of enduring themes year after year, regardless of what's trending from a tech or a practice or pedagogy standpoint, is, we see, and I think our community sees education as this tremendous equalizer. And so ensuring that it is accessible to all is like a real priority for our community. So equity and social justice are sort of underpinnings of a lot of the conversations we have about learning, which is why you can gain so much as an early educator in a higher ed session, sort of reflecting on, again, the whole arc of the experience for our learners.
Yeah, we have to make those connections because the kids are traveling through these levels and they're experiencing. So we need to have these conversations from pre to grade 20 and beyond, because that's what we're trying to do. We're cultivating citizens who are going to be leading us not far from now in jobs that don't exist right now. So I think that all ties together. What have you seen has been your most, maybe a situation where there's been impact that perhaps you are super proud about, or you were surprised about?
Well, so this is the 13th year we've done South by Southwest EDU. I'll say the first one that comes to mind, which relates to our startup competition, which we just did last year or yesterday, and last year. This was our 12th year doing it. It's called the Launch Startup Competition and focuses on early stage education technology companies. Over the course of that decade, we've seen companies go from very early stages all the way up to being mature, impactful organizations impacting millions of educators around the world. And that's maybe one small example of just the impact that comes out of the event and the exposure. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think another example that comes to mind as we sit here again on International Women's Day is, I think it was in 2012, maybe we were supporting a group and launched the EdTech Women's Organization, and it immediately sort of exploded into a number of chapters and became a real powerful ally of helping highlight, again, both equity issues, innovation issues, impacts on practice and pedagogy. But again, when I think about we think a lot about more than a conference program. How do we grow a community? So we think of ourselves as community organizers a little bit more than that. And so to see that impact of the community at large is something that is really fulfilling.
I also appreciate the way you democratized this by allowing the virtual people to attend virtually that maybe couldn't afford to come to Austin. And that also helps build that community. So people around the world can be a part of this.
Yeah, very much so. Of course, in the midst of the pandemic, when events were not occurring and folks were in their Zoom arenas and so forth, that was one of the key learnings we had. As I think all of education did, like it provided opportunities for access and participation that were not heretofore necessarily available. It wasn't easy in many instances, and certainly our proficiency as an organization is in an in-person experience. But like educators all over, I think we've endeavored to spin up good, smart solutions that permit folks to engage and participate whether they're here or abroad.
Right.
And we're getting better at it.
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Knock on wood, right?
I also appreciate, as I mentioned before, going to a section, no matter what the focus is, getting something out of it. But I also think it might be challenging to place these sessions into tracks because they're so interdisciplinary, I've been finding as well. So what are some of those tracks? We had a couple of them with the trends. But what are some others besides those are trending, but some that you might have tracked and maybe you had some, controversy of how this might be organized?
Yeah, I think I'll let Greg speak to it, but as we described the event, there's a lot going on and helping folks discover what they're looking for is very important to us. And so we think a lot about the registrant experience and how to help them connect with the content and the community and the people they want here. Using tracks and our technology tags to build into the program, something that's super, super important, I think, for the community in that respect. So I think we've done a lot with a kind of navigation attention through the event. It's a function of tracks and tags and
focus areas. Yes. So we have 11 tracks this year and we've kind of evolved them over the years. And honestly, we're a community fueled event. A lot of the content you see on the program has come from the community through this process called Panel Picker, where we invite the community to submit programming ideas.
Hear about that.
Yeah. So people propose ideas. This is over the summer before the next March event. And over the course of a month, they propose ideas. This is what we're thinking about. This is what we want to talk about next March. And then what's unique is the advisory board, the staff, and the public get to go back in a month later and review all those ideas and provide their input, provide comments, thumbs up, thumbs down. This is how we feel about these topics. And it's that kind of robust reaction to the ideas that are shared that kind of winnows down into what is inevitably programmed for the event. So we will have like 1,500 proposals for Panel Picker for the program, and we'll winnow it down to 350 sessions at the event. And so it's part of that process is identifying, what are the trends, what are the tracks, the tags, the focus areas is sort of how we delineate, this is really a K-12 session or a higher ed session, but the tracks will illuminate things like mental health and wellness, arts and storytelling, global connections, community initiatives, practice and pedagogy, and equity and justice are some of our bigger ones, but also emerging tech. So those are some of the tracks that we identify, but we try and find ways to organize content to bridge those gaps. So it's not just a K-12 track or just a higher ed track that they're talking about subject area that really matters to them, and how it has that cross-disciplinary function. But then also because we know there's so much content here, we have to help people navigate it and get to the right session at the right time.
Exactly. Yeah, it's an interesting web.
A person attending South by Southwest does not just sit and get. There's so many other ways that you can be an attendee and be involved. What are some of those ways?
Yeah, we think a lot, again, about how to support that registrant experience. And we know some folks, enjoy the big room and prominent voice. And we're super excited later this morning. In fact, shortly, we're going to go welcome Dr. Ruth Simmons, HBCU president from Prairie View A&M, who's just had this illustrious career at higher ed, to the stage in that respect. From big rooms to one-on-one mentor sessions, we've tried to create a variety of points for folks to find their comfort level. So I'll let you speak to like formats or other things.
Sure. Well, we're South by Southwest EDU. We've been doing this for 13 years, but we're really building it on the backs of South by Southwest, which is this historic music, film, technology conference in Austin that started in the 80s. And they have built all these processes for building what makes a quality convening style convergence festival that's both a conference and a festival. And so we kind of have built EDU into a conference and a festival. So in addition to 350 sessions, ranging from mentor sessions, roundtables, all the way up to these big keynote and featured speaker rooms, we have film programs. So we'll screen a number of films over the 4 days. We do performances that sort of illustrate arts and performance as a vehicle for learning. We do a series of competitions. We have an expo. We have social events. We have networking lounges. We have meetups. So we've just tried to think about all the different ways that people engage, network, communicate, and create an element of discovery along the way. So that the way you described earlier, it's about showing up, and this may be the session down the hall that I didn't think I'd pop into. And I actually love this. I had no idea this was going on, and it's a new discovery. And that's part of being in person together at South by Southwest.
I just think it's so interesting how there are so many different unique types of formats that you offer. And one of them is podcast format. We've done sessions at conferences where we propose that we're going to be doing a live podcast and recording, and the audience can ask questions. And but it hasn't been a format. It's been something that was uniquely submitted. But here you actually give, so it's a room. All of the tech is in there. You have it set up so that it's a stage. There are people. It's panel podcast style, and then the audience can also engage and ask questions. So when did your podcast format start? Has it been a couple of years? Because not all conferences are doing that.
We were very proud to build it out for 2020, which we didn't get to then bring it to fruition. So last year was our first year doing it in full, and then this year is our second year. And it's been just amazing to see the growth in what is education podcasting, people talking about core education issues and doing it in front of a live audience without the live questions and interaction, I think has been really amazing. Last year, all the podcasts that were recorded on that stage have been released now. And so that energy from the community here is now emanating through all the different communities that podcasters like y'all have done a really good job cultivating.
Right. Yeah.
Well, frankly, we love y'all's work as well. I mean, we enjoy supporting media. We think a lot of what's challenging can be supported with better communications, more narrative. We're excited to have 100 registered media and press credentialed at the event, because we think telling the story of educators and of classrooms and of communities is really, ultimately, education is this hyper-local pursuit. And so empowering the community to set those stories free. So what y'all are doing with podcasts and as a format, we're super excited.
And you mentioned the media. Yes, I've seen people walking around with cameras and taking, so you encourage that, and that's where people are roaming and getting different perspectives in that way. That's fantastic.
Yeah, very much so. Again, a little bit of an ode to our roots, coming off of the growth of a tremendously successful music festival for several decades and the tech conferences. Again, we recognize that many folks are able to come to Austin, but many folks aren't. And so sharing, inspiring stories of impact and inspiration and connection, something that, gives us great pleasure. We joke sometimes that we wanted to celebrate educators the same way we do rock and rollers or dancers. And we feel like we've made good progress, really loving on a community that is foundational to everything that happens at South by, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like I was coming to Disney World with all the options. Getting excited about getting and oh my gosh, girl, this so it's been really great. And one thing I'll let Jerri ask, we would like to end a podcast with a little retrospective look.
Yes. So in your years in South by Southwest EDU, what has become clearer?
I'll share this. I think, and we may have alluded to it, when we launched the event now 13 years ago, there was a huge focus on the institutions of learning. There was a lot of attention to assessments and standardization and inputs in higher ed. And we saw that conversation evolve from inputs to kind of outputs and results and achievement. But I think more fundamentally, in the years we've been doing this, we've seen a shift away from the institution or the structure as a priority and really a focus on the learner and supporting that learner journey. And so when we talk about the learner journey, then issues of accessibility and social justice and inclusion and innovation really resonate regardless of if your focus is in early learning or in workforce and supporting community development in that respect. And so I think the clarity with which our sector appreciates our challenge and opportunity to kind of grow and support our individuals in their paths through life. That's what really enthuses us about the work.
Yes, and when we know better, we do better, and we have to share.
Yeah.
Yes.
It really is in the best practices fest where we're talking about what's working, we're talking about what's not working. So we're doing that. And to Greg's point, the efficacy of our work, I think, has never been on a higher plane than it is post-pandemic, where we want to see and we want to support our learners to move the needle the way we all do.
Yes. Well, we want to congratulate you for a great conference. We are having a great time here, and it has exceeded expectations. We know. And thank you for taking time. We know how busy.
Yes.
Yeah, you're kind. It was good.
But thank you for being the squeeze us in.
Oh, listen, we enjoyed it very much. Thank you all for being here. Have a blast through the rest of the South by.
Yeah.
Need help, let us know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. And if you would like to stay linked up, be sure to follow us on Apple and Spotify and subscribe to us on YouTube.